Welcome, my name is Greg Hogan. I'm with the OSU Environmental Health and Safety Department. Today we're going to talk about control of hazardous energies. Some people refer to it as Lockout Tagout. And the OSHA regulation is 29 CFR 1910.147. And that is the OSHA standard that gives you all the information that deals with Lockout Tagout. In this course, we'll cover the following: the need for energy control procedures, methods for locking out and tagging out, employer's responsibilities, employee training needs, and inspection requirements. Let's do a little facts real quickly here. According to OSHA, nearly 10% of the serious workplace injuries can be attributed to improper lockout tagout. True or false, you think? Well, let's go to this part right here. It says cleaning machines fall under the same category as service and maintenance. That is true. Only machines powered by electricity are covered by the lockout tagout standard. That is false. There's different types of energy sources, and we'll get to those here in just a little bit. Tagout devices are considered to be just as secure as lockout devices and can be used instead in most instances. That's false. Certain machines do not require lockout tagout. Unplugging the cord before service or maintenance is acceptably safe. And that is true. Technically known as the control of hazardous energy. Control of energy, just an example of this, would be control of energy, energizing, starting, or even stored energy and machinery or equipment, which could cause injury to employees. That's what they refer to controlling of hazardous energies. Covers the service and maintenance of machines, basically where the unexpected startup or release of stored energy could cause injury. Some examples of those include in the construction, installation and setup, adjustment of the machines or maintenance, inspection, modifications, and routine service. These are all considered as what? Service and or maintenance of machines. It does not cover construction, agriculture, or maritime. Installations under exclusive control of electric utilities for power generations, transmissions, and even distributions. Exposure to electrical hazards from work on or near or with conductors or equipment and electrical utilization installations. Oil and gas, drilling, and even servicing are not covered under this particular standard. Service and maintenance, basically that takes place during normal production operations, covered only if, is only covered if the employee is required to remove or bypass a guard or other safety devices, or if the employee is required to place any part of their body in the point of operation, or when an associated danger zone exists during machine operation cycle. There are some exceptions that they do provide minor tool changes and adjustment and other minor servicing activities that basically take place during normal production operations are not covered if they are routine, they're repetitive, or they're integral. It does not cover normal production operations, work on a cord or plug connected equipment where the plug is under exclusive control of employee performing servicing maintenance, hot tap operations under special conditions. OSHA and ANSI lockout tagout standards. So what exactly is a standard? A standard basically for this particular lockout tagout is the control of hazardous energy, 29 CFR 1910.147, released in 1989. The regulatory standard is intended to prevent unexpected energization or startup of machinery and equipment, or the unintentional release of stored energy that could severely injure or even kill employees during maintenance and service. It primarily focuses on general industry. Specific standards provided for maritime terminals, longshoring, and also the construction industry. The how. ANSI lockout tagout standards. Title Control of Hazardous Energy, lockout, and alternative methods include ANSI or the ASSE Z244.1-203 industry consensus standards. They're not laws unless cited in OSHA regulations, establish best practices and details, specific methods, and examples of how to implement. That's what ANSI standards are all about there. There's some definitions we need to cover real quickly before we continue on. Who exactly is the authorized employee? This is an employee who basically locks out or tags out the machines or equipment to perform servicing or maintenance on that machine or equipment. Lockout and tagout is used by an employee for their own protection. The affected is an employee who performs the duties of his or her job on equipment or in an area in which the energy control procedures implemented in servicing or maintenance operations are performed. All other employees who work operations are or may be in an area where energy control procedures may be utilized. There's several different energy sources. We gave you a list of some of them that you'll run across out there. First type of energy source, what they consider is mechanical. The second one is hydraulic. Third is chemical. The fourth is pneumatic. The fifth is going to be electrical. And of course, the last one is going to be thermal. The employer is responsible for establishing a program consisting of a written energy control procedures. The employer is responsible for training employees and also required to do periodic inspections on their program. If an energy oscillating device is not capable of being locked out, the employer's energy control program should utilize a tagout system. When a tagout device is used on an energy oscillating device which is capable of being locked out, tagout devices shall be attached at the same location and they must provide equivalent safety. Energy control procedures shall be developed, documented, and utilized for the control of potential energy hazardous energy. Shall clearly and specifically outline techniques to be utilized to control hazardous energy. This is going to be a step-by-step process is what this comes down to. Energy lockout procedures. Statement of intended use of procedure. Steps for shutting down, isolating, blocking, and securing machines or equipment to control hazardous energy. The next part is steps for the replacement, removal, even transfer of lockout devices or tag devices and the responsibilities for them. Also in the procedure, requirements for testing machine equipment to determine and verify the effectiveness of the lockout tagout devices and other energy control measures. There are a few exceptions, though, that they do allow. Machine equipment has no potential for stored residual energy after shutdown. Machine equipment has a single energy source which basically can be readily identified and isolated. The isolation and lockout of energy sources will completely de-energize, deactivate the machine equipment. Machine and equipment is isolated from that energy source and locked out during servicing or maintenance. Single lockout device will achieve a lockout condition. Lockout device is under exclusive control of authorized employee performing the service or maintenance. Servicing maintenance does not create hazards for other employees. Employer has had no accidents involving the unexpected activation or re-energization of the machinery equipment during servicing or maintenance. Materials and hardware shall be provided by the employer. They shall be singularly identified, only device used, and not used for any other purpose. As you can see there in the slide, they do have a tagout device. They also what they refer to as a hasp, and of course they have a designated lock. This particular picture right here actually shows a green lock. So everybody working in that particular organization knows if it involves a green lock, once again, it's going to be used for what? Strictly for locking out and tagging out a piece of equipment. The materials and hardware shall also be durable, they shall be standardized, they shall be sustainable, and once again, they shall be identifiable for employees that work in that particular company. There's all different types of devices that you're going to find out there. If you look there on the screen, there's several different ones that actually will come in some of these lockout device kits. One of the things you want to keep in mind, though, is look at the type of energy sources that you have. And most importantly is make sure you have the specific lockout devices for that particular machine that you're going to be having to use those devices on. Here's an example right here where an employee did actually go in and lock out that particular machine right there. If you will notice, though, it does have a cover directly over the stop button. Basically, it's used for what? Locking and tagging out that piece of equipment. The employer is also required to use periodic inspection conducted at least annually to ensure procedures and requirements are followed. Also performed by authorized employee other than the one using the procedure, and designed to correct identified deficiencies or inadequacies. Employees shall certify that the periodic inspection has been performed. The lockout inspection must review each authorized employee's responsibilities under the energy control procedure. The tagout inspection must review each authorized and affected employee's responsibility under the energy control procedure. And once again, additional training requirements for 1910.147 C7 II. As far as your training and communication, authorized employee, they need to recognize of hazardous energy sources. They need to include the type and magnitude of energy in the workplace. They also need the methods and means for energy isolating and control. That all affects through the authorized employee. The affected employee, their purpose is to use of the energy control procedures. That's what the affected employee's basically job is. All other employees' procedures for lockout tagout prohibit of restarting or re-energizing machinery that are basically locked or tagged out. The tagout system, basically, is a warning device only, does not provide physical restraint. It must not be removed, bypassed, or ignored. It must be legible and it must be understandable. It must be able to withstand environmental conditions. It also may invoke a false sense of security, and it must be securely attached. It needs to be physically attached to the piece of equipment, not laid directly on top of the equipment without it being locked out and tagged out. Retraining of authorized and affected employees, if they do have a change in their job assignments, they have a change in machines, equipment, or processes that present new hazards, change in energy control procedures, whenever periodic inspections reveal or employer has received reason to believe there's a deviation in employee knowledge or the use of procedures. This retraining also needs to make sure that it is documented. Once again, if it is documented, it is not documented, it never happened. Is this correct? If you look at this lockout device right here, once again, you will notice it does not allow that machine to actually expand any further. And once again, it is locked in a fixed position. Lockout shall be performed only by authorized employees who are performing the service and maintenance. In other words, the authorized employees are going to be the ones who actually perform the physical service and also the physical maintenance on that piece of equipment. It's also important that authorized employees maintain possession of a key during the entire lockout process. Don't share your key with nobody. You need to keep the key yourself. The affected employee shall be notified by the employer or authorized employee of the application and removal of lockout devices. Notification is given before controls are applied and after they are removed from the machine or the equipment. Let's talk about the application of the lock, or the control. Sequence of lockout tagout procedures. The first step, of course, is preparation for the shutdown, machine or equipment shutdown, machine or equipment oscillation. The other thing, too, is lockout device application. Where's all the stored energy? How are we going to release it? Verification of oscillation, release from the lockout tagout, inspection of the machine or equipment, work area, and the other thing, too, is location of the employees. Let's prepare for the shutdown. Know the types and amounts of energy that is actually going to be the power source. You've got to know exactly where that piece of machinery that the power source is coming from. You also need to know the hazards of the energy to be controlled. And the other thing, too, you need to know before shutdown, know method or means of controlling the energy source. Okay, that's all where in the preparation of the shutdown. The maintenance equipment shutdown. Turn off or shut down using established procedures. Orderly shutdown to avoid additional or increased hazard to employees as a result of the equipment stoppage. All it is just a step-by-step process. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3 as you go through this particular process. When you get to the very end, basically what it comes down to, you shouldn't have any energy sources to the equipment, and the equipment should not be able to come on for any given reason. All energy oscillating devices need to control energy sources shall be physically located to isolate the machine or equipment from the energy source. It has to be in the exact location where the energy source is coming from. It shall be affixed to each energy oscillating device by authorized employees. Lockout devices shall be affixed in a manner that will hold the energy oscillating device in a safe or an off position. The tagout device shall be affixed in a manner indicating that the operation or movement of energy oscillating devices from a safe or off position is prohibited. The stored up energy after application of the device, all potential stored or even residual energy shall be relieved or bled off, disconnected, restrained, and or otherwise rendered safe. What you're trying to do on this particular step right here, you're just trying to get rid of the energy sources, whatever the sources may be. Verification oscillation. Prior to starting work on machines or equipment that basically have been locked out or tagged out, authorized employees shall verify that isolation and de-energization of the machine or equipment have been accomplished. If an authorized employee is performing service and maintenance work on a machine or a piece of equipment, is exposed to hazardous energy from nearby machines or equipment, the employer is required to provide the employee with protection from those hazardous energy sources. So when you release from the lockout tagout before lockout devices are removed and energy once again is restored, the work area inspected to ensure that non-essential items have been removed and to ensure that machine or equipment components are thoroughly operational and also intact. Work area must be checked to ensure all employees have been safely positioned or removed from that affected area, and affected employees need to be notified that lockout devices are removed. The other thing, too, is you need to make sure that you get your tools, your equipment, whatever it is that you have that you've been working with on that particular machine. Make sure it's accounted for, please. Each lockout device shall be removed from each oscillating device by the employee who applied the device. Exceptions: when authorized employee who applied the lock is not available, the device may be removed under the discretion of the employer. Okay, that's basically the only other way that the device can be removed. Employee removal of the lockout tagout device, once again, is a specific procedure shall be included. They need to verify by the employer that authorized employee who applied the device is not at the facility. Make all reasonable efforts to contact authorized employee to inform them that the lockout device has been removed, and ensure that the authorized employee has this knowledge before they resume back to work. From the supervisor's standpoint or the employer's standpoint, they need to verify that that employee, once again, is not there. They need to make every reasonable effort to make sure that that person has either been texted, emailed, called on the phone, or some other way of identifying, hey, this employee has been attempted to be contacted. And once again, this is the documentation that we do have to prove that we did make contact or attempt to make contact with the employee. Testing or positioning of the machines. When should lockout devices must temporarily be removed for testing positioning. Clear the machine of equipment, of tools and materials. Remove employees from the area. Remove your lockout tagout devices. Energize and proceed with testing and positioning. De-energize and reapply energy control measures. That's if you have to go back and do any testing or positioning of the machinery. If you have to have outside contractors come in, on the on-site employer must exchange lockout tagout information. On-site employees must understand and comply with the rules used by the contractors. So that involves all your outside employees or personnel coming in. When servicing or maintaining, maintenance is basically performed by a group that shall utilize a procedure which affords employees protection equivalent to a personal lockout device. If you look here in the little picture on the screen right here, that's what they call a hasp. If you will notice, this particular hasp right here basically has 6 little holes or 6 little slots where an employee can run his lock directly through that particular tag and also apply the lock to the hasp. Another thing too that you'll see a lot of times is whoever's in charge of that particular project may actually put what they call a custodial lock on there first. In other words, whoever the supervisor is or whoever's in charge of that particular project may put their own lock on there. And once again, they will be the last individual to remove that lock after they verify that the job has been completed for that particular job task. Primary responsibility is vested in an authorized employee. Authorized employees must ascertain exposure status of group employees. If more than one crew is involved, the coordinator shall be designated. Each authorized employee shall use a personal lockout device to remove the device when they stop working on the machinery or the equipment. This also includes those of you that may have maybe an apprentice or even a helper or another employee working with you. They have to have their own individual lock. They cannot be falling underneath the lock that you did apply to that particular hasp for that particular lockout device. If you do have a change in shift personnel, specific procedures used during shift personnel changes to ensure the continuity of the lockout tagout protection. To minimize exposure from the unexpected energization or startup of machines or equipment or release of stored energy. In other words, when you remove your lock, another employee will put their lock directly in your position, and you need to exchange the information and let them know exactly what state you are and what type of repairs are still needed to get this piece of equipment back up and running. Over on the very far right, just a sampling lockout tagout procedure. It's a non-mandatory guideline to assist employers and also employees in complying with requirements of this section. You can even go into the OSHA's website and find information as far as the lockout minimal procedures are concerned. But one thing you do want to keep in mind, though, is make the lockout tagout process as simple as you possibly can, but also you need to make sure that it is very effective in bringing down that equipment down to zero energy sources. In this course, once again, we did discuss the need for energy control procedures. We also talked about different methods of locking out and tagging out procedures. We talked about the employer's responsibilities, the employee training needs, and once again, the inspection requirements. One thing that I cannot stress enough is make sure that everybody has their own lockout device, their own tag, and the appropriate type of devices that are going to be needed to bring that piece of equipment down to zero energy sources. And it's up to the employer to make sure that devices are provided to the employee. But it's also up to the employee to follow the written procedures as far as the guidelines for locking out and tagging out that piece of equipment. We got some facts and questions people always bring up, so there's some ones that I've kind of added in to kind of help with the discussion portion. Number one up there is, can I use the lockout to secure my toolbox? And the answer to that is no. That lock is dedicated specifically for locking out and tagging out that particular piece of equipment, that particular manufacturer, or that particular company. Remember, they're going to be color-coded, most of them will, or they have some type of identifying, hey, this lock is strictly for locking out and tagging out a piece of equipment. Who's responsible for supplying the employee with a lock and tag? That is your employer's responsibility. Employee does not need to bring their own lockout tagout device. Clearly states in the standard 29 CFR and 1910.147 that the employer shall provide you with everything that is needed for you to have a successful lockout tagout program. They're responsible for providing you with the locks, the tags, the written procedure. They're also required to provide you with training. My supervisor stated that because I'm working with a coworker, I do not need my own lock or tag. And the answer to that is false. You need to make sure you have your own individual lock, your own individual tag, if you're going to be working or even assisting somebody on a piece of equipment. Okay? One lock, one key, one worker. Do employees need to be trained in lockout tagout procedures? And the answer is yes, they do. It doesn't matter what type of position that employee has within the job area, they need to know what the lockout device looks like. They also need to know what to expect during a lockout tagout procedure. And that's going to be for the general employees that are working in that particular area. They can identify, okay, there's a lock. That means they're doing some type of maintenance or repair on this piece of equipment. But also from the authorized employee, there also needs to be, they need to know that lockout tagout program inside out, but they also need to know the machinery itself and get to know where all the lockout tagout devices are located. Most importantly is, how do I go about shutting this particular machinery down? And once again, it's just a step-by-step process. Find something that will work in your particular organization. And like I said earlier, make it as simple, but yet you want to make it as productive as you possibly can within the procedure itself. All right, with that said, we're at the very close of the program. This is a little bit about the OSU Environmental Health and Safety Department. These are some of the programs and services that we do provide. Once again, as you can notice there on the screen, we do offer different types of programs as far as fire protection, life safety and emergency preparedness, environmental compliance. We also cover laboratory safety, occupational health and medical surveillance, materials management, industrial hygiene, chemical hygiene, and of course safety training. Our department is located in the University Health Services Science Building in room 002. Our phone number for our general department number is 744-7241, or you can send us an email at ehs@okstate.edu, or you can actually go onto our website at ehs.okstate.edu. With that said, I do thank everybody for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.